What's up, people? Sorry I didn't do the video last night, but so hold on. Later I'm gonna be doing two review videos today. I'm gonna be reviewing Scorpion King right now, and then later I will be reviewing more. It's not really more like ranting about Mummy 3. So we're just gonna finish those movies, and then I got videos playing next week. So I know I rewatched Scorpion King twice because since I didn't review it last night, I was like, all right, I can put it on again, and both times I enjoyed it. I think it's just a fun movie. Like, it was a fun 2002 B movie. Like, wasn't great. The Rock's acting, I'll admit, wasn't amazing or anything. It very much was playing The Rock, but I think this kind of role works. And I know he's trying to, apparently, he wants to reboot it. Because I know there was like a bunch of straight to DVD sequels, and I guess now he wants to reboot it. I'll watch it. We'll see. But the biggest gripe I have with this movie, honestly, it should have been R rated. Because the amount of times you just see people get sliced with blades, I'm like, wait, there's no blood. It just throws me off. But it does feel like a barbarian Conan type thing. So it's just a fun movie like that. The cast is decent. Memnon's an alright villain. He's not like great, but he's serviceable for this movie. I don't look at it though as connected to the Mummy movies, only because he honestly feels like a completely different character than. Granted, we only saw him for 2 seconds, but then the Scorpion King we saw in Mummy Returns. In this, he feels like a completely different character, and I guess they're trying to go for. He started off honorable because this is The Rock's first real movie, leading movie. I'll say that. His first real leading movie. Because if I remember right, this was the movie where after WrestleMania 17, Rock left, took a hiatus from WWE, well, WWF at the time, to film this. So this was his first leading role. So I understand why, they couldn't have him be a bad guy, but it just doesn't feel connected to the Mummy movies at all. Besides, those, if you remember from Mummy Returns, you see the villains, these guys in red kind of cloaks. That's the only carryovers. You have some villains in red cloaks in this movie, but other than that, it just doesn't feel connected to the Mummy. But it's a fun movie. And the soundtrack, which we've talked about, is really good. I mean, obviously, I Stand Alone by Godsmack, but you also have Sevendust, so it's it's a very early 2000s movie, because this movie came out in 2002. I remember seeing this in theaters, and I stayed in, because I was 6 years old when this came out, and I remember seeing it again. I saw it twice. I stayed, well, my mom and I stayed and watched it again. So let's get started. So the movie starts, you get a little bit of as you've grown accustomed to these Mummy movies, you always have an opening with a narration. They talked about the rise of Memnon and his tribes. This is where we're introduced to Matthias, who saves his Akkadian brother. Got a really cool little action scene in the beginning. And one of the villains, I think, was Tyler Mane. In the beginning. Yeah, it was Tyler Mane. He was just some guy who captured his brother. This was mainly just to showcase how cool Matthias was. He comes and saves his brother. Really fun little action sequence in the beginning. Then they get their mission. When the Akkadians get hired by King and is the kind of the rest of the free tribes to kill the witch or the sorcerer, who's basically the source of Memnon's powers. Power, because she basically can predict battles and and that's so they do that, but it turns out it was a ruse, and the king's son turns on him and basically ratted them out, and the two other Acadians get executed. They capture Matthias, and then Memnon kind of talks shit, and the sorceress kind of like basically starts taking care a liking to him. So she basically says, "Don't kill him." So they send him to the desert because he can't die by Memnon's hand. So they bury him in the desert to get killed by fire ants, but he gets saved by um, this horse thief, Apid, Arpid. Okay, you see him earlier. He's like kind of like the Jonathan of this movie. Like he's supposed to be like the comedy, like he's the like comedic sidekick. All around, it's paced well. It gets started very quick too. It's not. I don't think it's boring at all. You get going. Matthias is an okay character. If this movie was a bit longer and you just made it R rated, mainly because this is like a Conan the Barbarian type thing. You have in a war where everyone has blades and stuff. I just don't. It's hard for me to believe when you're using any kind of blade and there's just no blood, like anywhere. Like you get like I think a quick shot of it, but it's like you're there's like just scenes where Matthias is slicing motherfuckers, like bare chested warrior motherfuckers, and there's no like that guy should be like covered, be all red right now. Like that's my only little thing, and I get it. This was when movies just kind of were safe, and any like big franchise pipe line movie, they were always PG-13. They were just not. They weren't. This was they didn't make. This was a time when not everything was R rated. Besides like something like Goodfellas or something like that. Like it has to. It can't be part of a franchise, which is unfortunate. So Matthias and Arpid escape, and they sneak into Memnon's stronghold with he finds some street urchin kid who I'll admit the kid was okay. He could have been worse, honestly. So this street urchin kid helps him, but this kid, because he was about to, because he wants to kill Memnon, and he's about to, but then one of Memnon's people catch the kid stealing, so they have to end up uh, and this is like in the world where if you steal, you get your arm chopped off. So they were gonna chop this kid's arm off. So Matthias ends up saving the kid, and then fails in killing Memnon. And basically, you get a little bit of a funny segment where he runs in and meets up with I'm trying to see if I can find this dude's name. 'Cause he was like this. Because he gets help with by Takmik, I think he's like the some tech guy, older tech guy who the actor's actually really good. He's in like a few movies, so he ends up getting away, but he also kidnaps the sorceress. I don't really think they give her a name in this. She's just sorceress. Oh, Cassandra. Her name's Cassandra, played by Kelly who you may know. Kelly Hu's actually been in a few movies, most notably X-Men X2, X-Men United. She was Lady Deathstrike in that, which came out a year after this. She was also in another movie I reviewed, Friday the 13th, Part 8. Jason Takes Manhattan. She's in that one really quick. That's like a really young her. And so I think she's a decent actress. She's been in some decent movies. She's decent in this. She's like the love interest, basically. I mean, so she ends up going with Matthias, and basically Memnon's plan is to kill, uses hires Thorak and his forces to capture the queen or the sorceress and kill Matthias, and he basically gets an arrow and puts like scorpion poison on there. So yeah, that's not on the nose. Then You have a battle in the desert where basically um, Matthias starts like killing off Thorax forces. I'll admit this scene's actually really good. Very like ninja. He's just like taking them out, and then he has a final face off with Thorak. He kills him, but Thorak ends up stabbing um, Thorak because he was using because there was a sandstorm coming, so Matthias was using that as like cover. So I'll admit that scene was actually really good, even though there was no fucking blood really. But though there was one scene where one of Thorax Force's guys gets fucking impaled, like basically impaled on a fucking rock, like Vlad the Impaler style. Like you can show that, but you can't show. Okay, so Matthias kills Thorak, but Thorak stabs him with the poisoned arrow. But Cassandra ends up saving him because she's a sorceress, so she ends up saving him. Then they wake up, and then they this is where they get captured by the rebels, led by Baltazar, which is played by Michael Clark Duncan, who R.I.P. You know, most notably from The Green Mile. He's a really that movie, like his performance in that just is phenomenal. But I actually think he was a decent Kingpin, even though I'm not a fan of race swaps. But I think for this movie he kind of worked. Um, so Baltazar and Matthias have a quick little battle. Matthias wins, and he asks them to join together because that's the only way to stop Memnon. And you get a pep talk from Matthias to the to the audience. Um, Matthias and Cassandra hook up, you know, have sex, and then she goes off because she has a vision that Memnon's people come and basically kill everybody. So she goes back to Memnon. Seemingly everything is fine while the rebels get ready to invade. So this is where we're pretty much at the final act now. Um, the rebels attack while Memnon tests Cassandra because he fully doesn't trust her. So she tries to kill him. Matthias comes in. Big final battle in the end while Baltazar and his forces are taking out the goons. And it's a pretty good little final battle all around. Then Matthias and Memnon have a decent. The fight in the end is actually pretty good. Memnon seemingly takes out Matthias because this is part of her vision where she saw Matthias get shot with an arrow, which he does, but like a G, he just pulls it out and then shoots Memnon. You know, and you have the usual action catchphrase. He's like, "Catch this," and then he shoots him, kills him, and then he becomes the new king. And then the film ends. Like, you know, big celebration in the end. Yeah, and then they call him the Scorpion King in the end. It's very cheesy, but it's a fun movie. I mean, I think it's a fun, like, 2 hours. No, it's under 2 hours. It's an hour and a half. It's very short. It's not too long. If you want an hour and a half of just decent action, you and The Rock actually was decent. Like for his first like real major movie, I actually thought he was pretty good, especially compared to some people. The score was okay. It doesn't feel like it's connected to the Mummy movies. It just feels a little bit out of place. But as a movie itself, it's fine. I think it's a decent, like, you know, medieval, like, in the past movie with people with swords and stuff. I think it's fun in that sense. You have a good soundtrack. Very early 2000s cheese, but it's a fun ride. And it's not boring. Like, you can have fun with it. Honestly, just watching the two Mummy movies and then this, I'm kind of good. And Kelly Hu was decent as a love interest. I wish there was a bit more lore to this movie. That's my other criticism. I don't think there was enough lore because this movie's a bit too short. I think it could have used another maybe 30 minutes at least, honestly. But it's fine. If you want just a decent hour and a half movie to kill time, watch The Rock slice some people up, even though there's not really any blood. This is the movie. Like, it's not horrible. It's not great. Out of 10, I would give it like a 7. About like a 7 or so. Um, I definitely could watch it again. It's not phenomenal, obviously. It's nowhere near like the Conan movies, the good ones anyway. But it's a fun ride. So, that's really all I could say about Scorpion King. Is it was a fun ride. It knew what it was. So later, I'm gonna be reviewing The Mummy 3 or Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, which is awful. But that'll be fun though to review it. Because I'll admit the Mummy movies are awesome, and the first two, and then this is a decent like uh, ancient history kind of movie, even though it's not accurate or anything. But like, if you want a movie about like ancient, I don't know if it's Middle East or ancient, like, because it's not Egypt, but like ancient times about like Akkadians and stuff. Like, I kind of like. I think this film services you for that. It's not phenomenal or anything. So, and I thought Michael Clark Duncan was decent. Like the cast was decent for the most part. Memnam, I'll admit, is not the most amazing villain. He's very much just kind of he's serviceable. I think that's the word. He's a serviceable villain. But yeah. Other than that, later Mummy review, Mummy Tomb of the Dragon Emperor review, and as usual, taking the final hit. But fuck Warner Brothers. They still don't get it. Fuck Disney. Disney is just, my opinion, they're the worst studio in Hollywood. Fuck bitch ass James Mangold. Fuck Indiana Jones 5. Fuck LeBron. And I'm happy. It's fucking ironic that China doesn't even want to show his movie. Fuck him. And fuck OneRing.net. And other than that, I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.